Hey, Chopper here. It's Chop Shop time. My guest today is Mario Waibel, and the theme today is just lacrosse is a way of life and how you found your way to it. And Mario, I've talked to a lot of people, and it seems like the catharsis is always when you first pick up a lacrosse stick. Does it feel like a second appendage, or does it feel like something totally foreign? And I think your story is it felt natural to you from the beginning. Tell us about what your background was. You had never played lacrosse. You tell us a little bit about your football background and how you first picked up that stick.
Yeah, it was crazy because at the time I was playing a lot of ice hockey. I was playing a lot of soccer, actually, different kind of football. But we were, I'd been over to Germany when I was 16 playing soccer. My brother, was a longtime professional here in the States, so that had kind of run in our bloodstream. And then hockey was just something that I loved and wish I was a lot better at. But, it was funny. We were on a family vacation. I saw some guys. It was up in the Northwest, so a lot of box lacrosse, a lot of lacrosse was trickling down over the border at the time. And I walked by a field, saw these guys throwing a ball around. Classic story. Walked over, asked if I could try it, and it was at that moment I remember I was hooked. I threw like 3-4 passes. It just clicked, and it was like one of those things where literally within a year I dropped everything and started playing. Like just it was one of those things that I loved so much. When you find that passion, and this is something that we always want for all of our kids, right? Is not necessarily what we love, but what they love, and that was just it. I just knew at that point that this is what I need to be doing.
Yeah. And I've talked to an equal number of people that picked it up and it didn't do anything for him. My younger son, Zach, who we've talked about before, and you've coached him before, but he was quite a good baseball player. And when he was 12 or 13, he was playing all-stars and all of that. And I remember we were running a practice one time, and I look around, it's his turn to bat for batting practice. I go, "Where's Zach?" And they go, "He's up on that upper field." And I look up in the upper field, and he's running around with another kid with a lacrosse stick in his hands for the first time. And Mario, number one, he had the biggest smile on his face I'd ever seen. And second, just his gait. It was such a joyful gait that he was running in. And I thought, man, I think we're going to lose ourselves a baseball player here, but we may very well be picking up a lacrosse player. And that's the way it turned out for him.
Oh my God. I could totally see him playing baseball too. His hand-eye coordination is off the charts.
I think just putting the bat on the ball was the same as putting a stick on the ball for him. And so you have gone on to become a major fixture among Southern California lacrosse coaches, and we'll get to that. But I think it's interesting for people to hear that you weren't an East Coast prodigy that started with a stick in your crib. You didn't pick it up until having grown up on the West Coast and actually stumbled into a practice pretty much as a grown man. Take us from there. I mean, I know you've had some cool experiences just in getting walking that path of lacrosse. Maybe fill us in on a couple of the good stories that have come about from that.
Well, it was a very interesting path. And I've been very fortunate to run into the people that I've been able to run into and have the friends. I think that's the thing that I love the most about lacrosse is it's such a small brotherhood. You know what I mean? And when you're a solid guy, you're just connected to a ton of other solid guys. And that's kind of, and being a great teammate is one of it's one of the primary things that everybody I've coached with preaches. And it's one of the things that we preach, it's that has led me to more things, more from everything from business opportunities to field opportunities to life lessons, just the camaraderie and the love for the game and the being a great teammate, from getting to play in the Hawaii tournament, with like the Crease Monkeys and being amongst guys that I'm just looking at and going every time they just, are throwing the ball around, you're going, wow, how am I here? Those kind of things, to, then transitioning into coaching and some of my closest friends out here, Jimmy Burrell, Scott Hochstedt, guys like that just, have pushed the game forward so far and love the game so much. It's been one of those things where every time you try and, it's funny, every time life tries to pull you away, you just keep coming back. And I know Jimmy and I always laugh, and we always say, you don't coach because you want to, you coach because you can't help yourself. Yeah. And I think that's one of the things, is that passion to give back to the game after, it gave us so many great years of playing. And I think that's one of the things that I also love about being out West is, for me, finding the game so late and being able to have, some good success with it, whatever that's measured as, but, being able to influence a lot of kids' lives, to getting better grades, to get into schools that they never thought they could get to showing how the game just has such a great influence on their lives. And me too, the same, similar function. But, coming to the game late, I think that it helps me to have that right chip on my shoulder for West Coast kids who are mostly coming to the game late. They're picking it up in high school. They're picking it up in 7th grade, and understanding it's such an amazing game for athletes, and how you don't have to forget every other sport to play this one. This one's kind of like this wonderful balance between so many other games. So, if you're playing football in the fall, which I strongly encourage, all of your footwork, all of that contact, all of that discipline, that applies. If you're playing hockey, same type of thing. Plus, you throw in the hand-eye coordination of not only your balance, but, being able to move a puck on a stick. If you're playing anything really, soccer, tennis, baseball, all of these sports, have basketball, tremendously basketball, have elements in our game that you don't have to forget. It's funny. I have a lot of the kids, you guys know the professor, that YouTube basketball guy who's an old and1 guy. I always have my kids watch him because I think he's so creative and so deceptive in how he gets people moving one way and brings the ball back the other way. Watching another game to figure out how that applies to your creativity to this game is, those kind of things just make me excited. Sorry, I got off track a little bit.
No, man, you've touched on a couple of great points. One is that, the whole idea of multi-sports, especially when you're young. I mean, it keeps you from burning out, but also I know a lot of college lacrosse coaches prefer that their players be multi-sport athletes. The other thing you mentioned, which I thought was interesting, was the allure that the game has. I think you said that it's life keeps trying to pull you away, and you're committed to it. And that sounds like a good marriage. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to be married for a long time. I know you have too. And it's the same kind of thing. Your commitment to that thing is so great that you can't be pulled away from it. And I think to have that kind of people can relate to the marriage, but to have that kind of affinity for lacrosse is just something really special. So when you first started playing, you told me that you were 6'2", 240 with wide receiver speed. And I think you were playing midi or close D. I mean, tell us about your own playing a little bit and how you ended up in goal.
Yeah, it was so funny. Here I am, just raw because I came to the game so late. But, at that size and that speed, you're just built to run into things. So it's fantastic. But it was funny. So I was so mad we had this goalie who was on one of the first teams I played on, and he was terrible. And I won't say his name, but he was really bad. And so I finally lost it. And the one thing I understood was hockey goalie. I understood it because you played angles, you did this, you did that. And mostly because I had to study that to be able to, effectively shoot. And so I understood angles. So one day I'm out there, I just couldn't take it anymore. I'm working with the goalie. I'm like, okay, let's, I'm going to show you these angles. We got to learn these angles right. Just at least be in the right position to force the right shot, learning to guide, not bait, things like that. And so I'm out there and I'm working with them, and the coach is watching me unbeknownst to me. And I come to the next practice and he throws me some goalie gear and he's like, this is your new spot. And I was like, because I knew, and this is great fast hands, not my gift. My son's gift, yes, not my gift. So I took everything off the body. It was unreal. I wish I would have had more pads, and it's funny because when you it's just a testament though to how that start position, and we talk about this all the time when I coach, whether it's dodging or playing defense or or playing goalie, that start position is so critical, because if you have a good start position, you've already got a minimum of 50% of the work done, because now the onus is on your opponent to get you out of that great position. And that was kind of my mentality as a goalie. And I took so many off the body for about 2 years. And then I sacked it in. I was like, I can't do this anymore. Get me back out to where I can run and bounce off of things.
And then is that when you moved out to play long pole?
That was when I moved out to play long pole.
Man,
And
from what I've seen, you had a great chance to hit people, when you're playing close D,
seriously, it was fantastic for me. And, and in the Northwest, it's a much, because of the box influence coming down just across the border, when I played, it was a very, very physical type of experience. So, getting out into that and playing to a lot of my strengths was just so much fun. And then, I was so fortunate to have, guys, like I said, just, when you're a great teammate and you're just open to learning anything, you bounce off of guys come through that have that, teach you that one little thing that changes your game this way or changes your game that way. And then it was funny, I played long pole for a little bit. And then when I came across a team with 5 basically starting poles, and I had just moved over to this team, and we had a coach who played at Hobart and was his name was Tris Wood, I think. And he played at Hobart and just loved, absolutely loved Princeton lacrosse at the time. In fact, I remember one practice, is so funny. Guys out west, we didn't know a lot of the guys back east because nothing was on television. We didn't have internet, and I remember one day he's yelling at us because we were shooting poorly, and he said, "This guy's no Scott Bacigalupo." We all had to go home and look up who the hell it was at the time, and then we were like, "Oh wow, okay, yeah, I guess this guy isn't who we said we should be shooting better." You know what I mean? So it was so funny, but he had such a huge influence on me. Moved me to the midfield where I could just be free and run and play offense and defense, and just really, that was, I think, where I blossomed as a player, because, with my natural skills to play a lot of defense, that's what I was, playing in soccer. That's what I played in hockey. That's what I played everywhere. But to kind of open my eyes to both ends of the field, and, just how to use film, how to, challenge yourself and push yourself differently, how to not just be a walking penalty minute, how to really, apply the resources that you had. And I thought that was the one thing I really took from that guy that applied to a lot of my coaching, in addition to my father and his coaching style. It's not about making the same player. It's about finding that thing in each player that's their strength, and maximizing that strength, and that's what it was just, I remember it was just one of those moments where it was like the light bulb popped, and I was like, oh my God, I could do so much more if I just made these changes, So that was kind of my progression. And then as I got older
so I want to go back to what you said also about the fact that, you and others coach, not because you can, but because you can't do without it. And unfortunately, in today's world, Southern California high school level lacrosse coaches don't make a king's ransom. And so most of you guys are doing other things to feed your family and support your family. And you're doing lacrosse in your spare time. And so you and I talked before, I know that you have been involved with medical sales, on the business side. And, maybe tell us a little bit about how that translates to lacrosse in terms of team building or whatever, or how lacrosse translates to business. How do you make those two work together?
Oh God, it's almost a direct line. That's the best part. I've been very fortunate to be with companies that, understand my passion and understand me wanting to give back to the communities, in addition to doing a great job for these companies. It's team. Everything boils down to team and being a great teammate. And I think that, like on the lacrosse field, it's funny. We just had some of this conversation the other day with the Sierra Canyon team, which is, your job is to push everyone around you. That's how we succeed as a group. Much like in business, if someone's not pulling their weight, the business suffers. The business doesn't make the revenue you need to grow the business. So if you're not, making the best you every day, or bringing the best you to the field every day, doing that extra wall ball, doing the extra, putting 10 more minutes into the weight room, 10 more minutes into conditioning, just something to push yourself farther than the other guy's going to go, then everybody suffers. And I think that's a kind of a direct line to business, having that chemistry, learning how to work with people, learning how to motivate people through your actions rather than just telling them what to do. I think those kind of things are so critical. And we always say, at least up here at Goon, you don't compete to be average. So why bring the medium to what you're doing? And I think that, when you get into business, it's so, and as you know, Drew, it's so critical that, you bring your best, and that pushes the guy next to you to bring their best, or the woman next to you to bring their best. And it really does have this, bonding effect, that locker room effect, I guess is the right way to say it. So we always try and draw those parallels, of, if you want to be a boss, you don't bring average.
Yeah. I can relate to that. I spent a long career in medical business, and a lot in sales and marketing and senior management. And, one of the things I learned early on is that if you're selling, you can use your sales ability, not just when you're trying to work, but in everyday life, whether it's trying to talk your way out of a speeding ticket, or when you're single, trying to talk the girl next to you into a dance. Right. And when I was in high school, my senior year in high school, I was playing for a very high level, successful high school basketball team. Our varsity team went 31-0 all the way to the state final tournament. And back in those days, it was pre-dunking. It was kind of, the guys in the short shorts. And as the center of the team, I learned that I could get a lot more out of drawing a charge than blocking a shot, because most of the refs were ex-guards and they wouldn't let you block the shot. They'd call a foul. And so I drew a lot of charges that year, but there was one ref in particular that would never give me the call. He would always call a block, always call a block. And I knew him by name. I'd been playing varsity ball for 3 years. And I was like, Mr. Schnell, Mr. Schnell, what did I do wrong? I thought I was there, and so never gave me the call, never gave me the call. We end up in the state tournament, and on a night, and we're playing in Kiel Auditorium, sold out, 15,000 people, number one team in state versus number two. And I look over and it's Mr. Schnell, and he's now reffing the game. So I'm trying to chat him up. I'm like, there's a free, Mr. Schnell, have you ever seen anything like this? Isn't this amazing? And he's, so game comes down the last 5 minutes. Their star player drives to the basket. I move in to draw the charge without thinking anything of it. He crashes into me. We fall down. And I look over, and it's Mr. Schnell. And I'm thinking, oh man, this is going to be a block. The guy's going to the free throw line. He goes over the scores table. He gives the offensive foul call, going the other way. And I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. He's probably not given me that call 20 times in my career. Why now? And I thought afterwards, that was my first sale ever in my life. I got somebody to buy what I was selling, and it was a charge call with Mr. Schnell. I want to bring it around full circle. So years later, I'm now coaching my kid in rec league basketball. And we've got a referee in that league that it was just awful. I was typically by myself trying to maneuver 8 or 9 kids around. And, in between quarters, you're trying to look at your list and make sure that the right guys are in for the quarter, because everybody has to play. And at one point, I'm trying to get my guys together, and he is counting off the time to start the quarter, sets the ball down on the sideline, counts to 5, gives it to the other team. They run in and make a layup. And meanwhile, I'm like, really? My kids hated him. They all hated him. And I said, look, this is like life. One day it's going to be your boss. One day it's going to be this or that. You've got to sell those people on yourself. So I never allowed them to complain. I never complained to him. And Mario, sure enough, we get into the playoffs. We're the 8th seed playing the 1 seed. And the guy's making horrible call after horrible call. And my team isn't saying a word. The other team's player mouths off, gets a tee, gets a second tee, gets tossed. We make the free throws. We win the game. And afterwards, I was able to teach them the life lesson, which is, you got to sell people. You can't argue too much. And that was a chance to share that with the kids. So, certainly taking advantage of that sales ability and using that for everyday life, it can really come in handy.
Oh my God, I love that story. I'm
Yeah,
going to use
yeah.
that. I'm stealing that. I may footnote it. I'm not sure yet, but yeah.
So I mean, you talk about, because I know when you first got involved, lacrosse was brand new in Southern California. Guys like you and Burrell and Hochstead, you guys were really sort of showing it the way. But those guys also kind of brought you along. Tell me about your relationship with those guys and kind of how you got started into coaching.
Yeah, it was funny. I was not to date myself too much, but let's just say I was at the tail end of my playing career. And, it was funny because I ended up bumping into Scott through a mutual friend that down in Redondo, there was a rink. And I can't even remember where it was. It was at some park. It was a big open.
Probably Wilson Park and Torrance maybe, but.
Yeah, maybe right there. So there was a pickup lacrosse going on there, and I, loved box lacrosse, and so went there, bumped into Scott. We started, showing up every week, and then Anaheim brought a team. The Anaheim Storm came into town, I think, from New Jersey, and Scott was on that roster. And so we just started talking, and we ended up we went to these tennis courts. I think it was on Manhattan Beach Boulevard, right there where those tennis courts are. Now, I don't want to incriminate us, but that guy can shoot the ball so dang hard. It's ridiculous. So if he would miss one or ring one off a pipe, I'm sure it was like 2 blocks away setting off a car alarm, so we would be on these tennis courts up there with a little, box, like lacrosse goal. This was even before they had the rage cages. So it's not even like we could, easily put one in there. We're like, moving furniture into the tennis court to do this. And we would just do one-on-ones. Like, I think it was every Wednesday night. Until neither of us could walk again. And then, a guy who played goalie was down there, and he would come and take shots from Scotty, and I would be playing D like the whole time. And it was just kind of one of those things. And, when again, I can't say this enough. It's the locker room, it's that brotherhood, that mentality, that was where I ended up meeting Scott. Scott was just at the point where he was starting youth lacrosse out here and West Coast Stars and all that kind of jazz. And he ended up asking me if I would coach a team out here in the Valley. And I said, sure, why not? And, it was just one of those moments where I fell in love with it. I absolutely fell in love with it. Scott got me into that. I was on everything, I think, for a long time, but the first West Coast Stars trip. And I had to sit that out because my son Logan was being born on that exact trip weekend. So I ended up not going on that first trip, but every trip after. So, all of these great names that he would find and bring in, like, the McIntosh brothers, Peter Baum, Landon Carr, Pierce Bassett, like all of the, and please don't, guys, if you're watching, don't think that I'm slighting anyone. It's just, this incredible, talent that he could find around the West Coast and building these organizations, and then having me help develop it out here in the Valley. And, and that brought me across guys like Sean Lindsay, Jay Pfeiffer, guys like that who've, established themselves in this area too, as premier coaches. And Mike McGovern, I've been with for a long time, but I had to say, like, it was always so funny because the way I met Jimmy now is also through Scott. And it was funny because Scott brought Jimmy out, and when he graduated from college, and Jimmy's doing private lessons. And I think he and I figured out, like, because I was going through some stuff at the time. And so I would come down and, and stay with Scott and just, to be with friends. You don't have a lot of those kind of friends, those guys who will be there for you for everything. And so I would come, and at Scott's house, I would stay in this guest room. And then I would go, back up to the, where I lived out in the Conejo Valley and near Westlake, and be doing all my stuff there. And then I would come down and stay with him, and he would be this, great support and friend for me for this period. And the entire time, Jimmy and I were sharing the same bedroom. We didn't know, like, so the nights he would be there and then he would go away to coach, and I didn't even know this. And then I would just come in and stay in the same place. And then I would leave, and then he would come in and he would be right there. And so we had this revolving door. And then we ended up, we always laughed because our paths never crossed during that time period. And then after that, met each other, like philosophically just lined up, and friendship wise just lined up. I mean, like, so I just laugh, at these two connections, how they just, kind of just happen. But because of that, that brotherhood and that camaraderie and that team mentality and that, that stuff, like you get around the right people. Does that make sense? I know that's a long-winded story, but it's just, I always laugh that.
I mean, you're talking about the real pioneers for Southern California lacrosse, and let me get rid of that guy. So you're talking about Scott Hockstead, Jimmy Burrell, yourself. So each of those guys sort of made their mark, and your mark has become Goon Lacrosse. And so I'm curious about why the name Goon, and maybe you can tell us a little bit about how you got that started and what you guys are doing now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so the long and shorts of it is a guy named, it was Tarek Ergin, who still coaches at Oak Park, just a legend in this area, and Howard Alpern. These are the two guys. Tarek was running Hollywood Lacrosse at the time, and Howard and him and I became, very fast friends. And it was always so funny because they used to it was that nickname. They'd call me the Goon. Like, you're a goon, you're just such a good, this physical, that kind of stuff. And so they'd always tease me about that. And then everywhere we went, they just call me Goon. They just call me Goon. And so it just kind of, the name started to stick. And then we were out. So I worked at a video game company. And at the video game company, just to kill time, sometimes you're working a 20-hour day because it's a production cycle and you're waiting on a build to come in, things like that. So we draw pictures of each other, misappropriate company funds and make a whole bunch of copies and put them up all around the office of each other, so it was all this artwork and drawing, just something funny at the time. Well, one of the artists made this caricature of me. In fact, I'll show you what it is. He made this caricature right here of me and put it up all over the place. And so I ended up just saying, I'll buy that from you. So I bought it from him for like $250 or something like that. I can't even remember. It was some paltry fee. And then slapped it on a shirt. And Goon started as training. It was Mike McGovern and myself just doing small group trainings, which I think have become kind of the norm now. But we instead of doing one private lesson, we were taking 4 to 6 kids, and we kind of had this real small cabal of guys that were just when you can dig deep into their mechanics every single day, and Mike's a mechanics guy too, and I'm a mechanics guy. When you can dig deep into that, all of a sudden you're getting this kind of really outstanding athlete. And at the time, because of my relationship with Scott, we just train them, and then everybody would go play lasers. And then the guys kept asking, hey, we want to go to a tournament. Hey, we want to go to a tournament. Hey, we want to go to a tournament. Because, by that time we'd built up to about 17, 20 guys, right? And these guys are going to North Carolina, to UMass, to Navy, to Cornell, this is a group that just, I forget, I always mess this up. Iron sharpens iron, steel sharpens steel. I can't, whatever that cliche is, that was this group. And so I literally slapped this face on a white t-shirt. That was it. That was all they got. No shorts, no fanfare, no sweatshirts, no socks, nothing. Just one t-shirt. And it didn't, and I was like, put it over your pads and let's go play. And we went and played. That was it, just a t-shirt and skill set. And it ended up being so much fun. And so, from that point, everybody kind of identified these guys with this training, this Goon training. And And, you know, it was fun because they just played for whatever club. They were like a group of mercenaries or ninjas or something. I don't know, you know, but so that was how that started. And then, you know, we started making teams, and I think I made a business mistake. You know, I got caught up in how many people were wanting to come train, and we made a bunch of teams. And while it affected a lot of kids in such a great positive way, you know, you got to sometimes play to your strength. And that's not one of my strengths is managing a bunch of teams. It's really not. And so consequently, kind of coming full circle, you know, after we did that, you know, successfully, but it just wasn't, you know, it didn't produce the same caliber of guys over and over again. We've just kind of, especially with the pandemic, been able to kind of reload, grab a small group of guys, restart recreating these mercenaries that are out making all of these teams right now, like Rogue and West Coast Warriors and West Coast Stars and Nike, you know, National. And so now we've got this kind of cabal of kids that kind of redoing what we did previously. And now just with the intention of we're never getting bigger than what we, you know, than basically two very concentrated teams, you know, and who's sharpened in the box. You know, that was one of the things, like back then we played a ton of box lacrosse, and we taught it not as a hybrid, but as CLA rules. And we had to laugh when we finally joined US Box Lacrosse. I think the head of it came down, Shaden Santos came down and looked at McGovern and I, the way we were teaching it. And he was just like, what on earth are you guys teaching? And we're like, well, what we knew from the NLL, which is grab guys and tackle them and pound them on the ground and stuff like that, you know? And he was like, that's not youth rules. And I'm like, oh, we should read those. And so
might be helpful, huh?
Yeah, you know, so we've obviously modified. Now Jimmy and I run a box, you know, run a box league up here, you know, that's intended to kind of give players here that opportunity to you know, experience that as, you know, true US box / CLA rules are, and being able to separate the two from the, you know, from modern field. And so it's been a lot of fun. Sorry, I know, again, I get long-winded, so you're just cut me off.
We are going to have to get out of here in a minute. Hold that logo up again.
Oh, okay.
Crossways. If you run into that, you better beware, because the goons are coming. Mario Waibel, I want to thank you for joining the show. Hey, a quick note, you know, we're all this is done courtesy of Lisa at LaxRatz.net. So check us out there. But hey, man, pandemic looks like we got it under control. We're gonna have a spring season, right?
We are. We definitely are. We got 14 games on the calendar right now and hoping to add.
And we can't wait. Listen, good luck in the season, and we'll check you down the road, all right?
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks.